has emerged for these communities is the realization that the only thing environmental regulations regulate are environmentalists. Corporations and the small group of people who control them use the system of law to further unsustainable activities, while at the same time communities, all of us, have not been able to use the law to protect ourselves.
It's brought home to us over the years that there are real tragedies in this work, that there's real harm occurring out there, and it's a violent, brutal system that operates. Most of us are insulated from it somewhat. It's actually about people dying, and it's about ecosystems being destroyed, extinguished. But there's a reason why the U.S. doesn't have to use armies in a direct sense to put down civil dissent in the United States. It's because it's done so well within our own heads. And it's that colonization of our brains that actually allow us to censor ourselves. And it's when we censor ourselves that we actually take ourselves out of the equation. And real change is no longer possible at that point. So it's that decolonization which has to occur. Well, there are a variety of forms of activism that have proven to be fruitless in the United States, that have worked on a regulatory model. In other words, working to tweak or reduce slightly the types of harms that corporations cause. So, for example, some conventional activism talks about writing Congress to get something moving in Congress. Other folks are urging, let's appeal a permit in the courts. Others are saying, let's find a creative new legal remedy that we can somehow sue X, Y, and Z. Our activism all has that common denominator, which is about begging and pleading other people to save us, whether that's the Sierra Club, whether it's Congress, whether it's our state government. We've been disempowered in many ways from believing that we have control over our own destiny. And the lesson of this organizing is that nobody's going to save you, that it is your community that is the only place that's actually going to move forward and do something to protect the things that you love.
So your community is about to be fracked, corporate factory farmed, used as a dumping ground for sewage sludge, drilled for corporate water withdrawals, used as a laboratory for GMO seeds, used for a transmission line, pipeline, or other energy project, or any of the other 1,000 corporate projects that your community doesn't want. You want to stop it? So you pick up the phone and call your state environmental agency, your local government, and environmental groups. However, what you will find is that all these groups put you under the state regulatory system. Under the regulatory system, the burden is on you and your community to show why the corporation should not be issued the permit, and the burden is on you to prove the corporation is not following the regulation. And your community, they shoulder the burden of paying for lawyers. Meanwhile, the corporation's law fees, they're tax deductible. You will also come to find that your community is stuck in a small box of allowable activism. Your community is boxed in by 4 legal doctrines. The first is state and federal preemption, which means that higher law preempts your law, such as when state oil and gas acts preempt or prevent local fracking laws. The second doctrine is Dillon's Rule. You would think that under our system of law, we would have local self-government, but you'd be wrong. Over the past 150 years, our local communities only have the power to make law if the state allows them to. The third doctrine, the Corporate Commerce Clause, gives the right to corporations to engage in interstate commerce. And doctrine number 4 gives individual constitutional rights to corporations, what is known as corporate personhood. These 4 doctrines work perfectly together to prohibit local communities from passing laws. So if your local community passes a law that bans some activity that the state allows, your town will be sued by the corporation and they will win.
We've been engaged with is working with communities to enact local laws that establish community bills of rights. Things including For instance, the right to clean air, pure water, a healthy environment, the rights of nature itself, the right to enact local laws because there is a right to local self-government. Included in these bills of rights are then prohibitions on certain corporate activities that would violate those rights.
Of those 150 communities, about 36 have passed rights of nature ordinances. It's really a paradigm shifting concept. The conventional system that we operate under now is that the ecosystem only has the rights of the people who are exploiting the ecosystem for their own use, versus a rights of nature system which recognizes that nature and ecosystems themselves have inherent rights, like to exist and flourish and naturally evolve. And so that provides a completely different system for environmental protection.
What has developed is a situation that's not really about people, and it's not really about the ability of people to go on. It's about economic activity and the ability of economic activity to be conducted, regardless of what the consequences of that activity. A lot of times it gets couched in language of jobs. We need jobs. Well, that's true, but if your job is causing problems that are going to give future generations, take away the opportunities from them, what are you really doing?